The silence on the range was absolute. 13 of the world's best snipers had failed. For 1,000 meters, an impossible shot that had become a legend, a test that separated myth from reality. The wind readings were chaos. The target barely visible even through the most advanced optics. And then she stepped forward. No introduction, no credentials offered. Just 3 words that made the range master's jaw tighten. Let me try. The Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado stretched across the California coast like a fortress of excellence. Today, it hosted something rare. The Long Range Precision Challenge brought together the finest marksmen from every branch, every allied nation, every corner of the special operations world. Men who could thread a needle at distances that defied belief. Men who had made shots in combat that became classified legends. Men who now stood in clusters, shaking their heads, their expensive rifles resting against their shoulders like failed promises. Master Chief Petty Officer Derek Strand stepped back from the firing line with barely controlled fury. His face was red beneath his tan, veins visible at his temples. He had been certain, absolutely certain. The conditions were difficult, but not impossible. He had calculated every variable, adjusted for every factor. The shot should have been his. Instead, the target 4,000 meters downrange remained untouched by his round. His 15th attempt. 15 failures. The range master, a grizzled Marine colonel named Vickers, marked another miss on his tablet. His expression gave nothing away, but those who knew him recognized the slight downturn at the corner of his mouth. Disappointment. This challenge had been his idea, a way to push the boundaries of what was possible, to find the absolute limit of human precision. So far, all he had found was the limit of human capability. 13 shooters, not one successful hit. Before we continue, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have seen someone underestimated like this where you live. Lieutenant Commander Maya Okonkwo had been standing at the back of the observation area for 6 hours. Not one person had approached her. Not one competitor had acknowledged her presence. She was used to it. 18 months of voluntary near silence had taught her that people grew uncomfortable around those who did not fill space with words. They avoided eye contact. They created distance. They convinced themselves she was not really there. She was there. She had been there since dawn, watching every attempt, cataloging every failure, understanding exactly why each shot had missed. The other shooters were brilliant. Their technique was flawless. Their equipment was beyond reproach. But they were all making the same fundamental error. They were shooting at where the target was, not where it would be when the round arrived. At 4,000 meters, that distinction became everything. Commander Sarah Park was the only person who had spoken to Maya all day. Park was the head of the SEAL sniper program, a woman who had fought for every inch of respect in a world that still questioned whether women belonged in special operations. She had seen something in Maya 3 years ago, something that went beyond natural talent. A hunger, a discipline that bordered on obsession, a willingness to suffer through anything to achieve perfection. Park touched Maya's shoulder now, a brief contact that communicated more than words. She understood what Maya was about to do. She understood the risk. If Maya stepped forward and failed, the whispers would become shouts. Every critic who claimed women did not have what it took for this level of warfare would have their evidence. But if she did not step forward, if she let fear of failure keep her silent and still, then Marcus had died for nothing. Marcus Chun, her spotter, her best friend, the man who had believed she would one day be the finest sniper the SEALs had ever produced. He had been dead for 18 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. She had not spoken more than required words since the moment she learned he was gone. Some thought her silence was grief. Some thought it was weakness. None of them knew it was a promise. She would let her performance speak. She would become what Marcus knew she could be. Then, and only then, would she have earned the right to speak freely again. Derek Strand noticed her moving forward. His lip curled. He had made his opinions about women in naval special warfare clear on multiple occasions, always careful to stay just within the bounds of what regulations would tolerate. He believed the standards had been lowered. He believed political correctness was destroying operational effectiveness. He believed Maya Okonkwo had no business wearing the trident. What he did not know, what no one except Commander Park knew, was that Maya had scored higher than Derek on every qualification. Her performance in SEAL training had been exceptional not by the standard applied to women, but by any standard. She could outshoot, outrun, and outthink most of the men who dismissed her. She simply did not need them to know it. She needed only to be ready when it mattered. This mattered. Rangemaster Vickers looked up as Maya approached the line. His eyebrows rose slightly. He glanced at Commander Park, who gave a single nod. Vickers had been a Marine for 32 years. He had seen enough combat to know that courage and capability came in forms the textbooks never mentioned. If Park vouched for this woman, that was enough for him. Permission to attempt the shot, sir. Maya's voice was quiet but clear. She had not spoken unnecessarily in so long that some of the observers startled at the sound. Derek Strand laughed. It was not a kind sound. The laugh said everything his regulations conscious mouth could not. It said she was wasting everyone's time. It said this was a joke. It said she should go back to whatever diversity initiative had put her here and stop embarrassing herself. Vickers ignored him. He looked at Maya directly, measuring her. He saw no bravado, no false confidence, just calm certainty. You understand the conditions, Lieutenant Commander? This is not a standard qualification. Multiple expert shooters have failed. There is no shame in observing rather than attempting. I understand, sir. Maya's eyes did not leave his. Let me try. Vickers handed her the rifle. It was a custom Macmillan TAC-50, a weapon that cost more than most cars and had been precisely calibrated for conditions exactly like these. Maya accepted it with the reverence it deserved. Her hands moved over the weapon with practiced efficiency, checking the scope mounting, feeling the weight distribution, understanding the trigger pull without having to test it. This was not her personal rifle, not the weapon she had spent 3 years learning to love, but that did not matter. Marcus had taught her that a true sniper could adapt to any weapon, any condition, any impossible situation. She moved to the firing line with movements so economical they seemed slow. Everything about Maya Okonkwo was deliberate. No wasted energy. No exismotion. When she settled into position, it was like watching water find its level. Natural. Inevitable. Right? Derek Strand moved closer, unable to resist. He stood just behind her, in her peripheral vision, a deliberate intimidation tactic. You know this is 4,000 meters, right? Not 400. At this distance, you're shooting at air currents you cannot see, wind patterns that change while the round is in flight. The best shooters in the world just failed. What makes you think you have a chance? Maya did not respond. She was already looking downrange through the scope, her breathing settling into the rhythm she had practiced 10,000 times. Slow inhale, slower exhale. The world narrowing to a tunnel of focus, so complete that Derek's voice became just another variable to filter out. Commander Park stepped forward, her voice carrying authority that made Derek take an involuntary step back. Master Chief, you'll clear the firing line. Now, she was not asking. Derek's jaw clenched, but he obeyed. Park had rank, and she had reputation. She had earned her place in naval special warfare through 2 decades of flawless performance. Even Derek knew better than to challenge her directly. The wind was the first problem. At 4,000 meters, the bullet would be in flight for nearly 6 seconds. 6 seconds during which the wind would push it, gravity would pull it, the Earth's rotation would affect its path. The Coriolis effect became a significant factor at this range. Maya had to aim at a point in space that did not exist yet, would only exist when every variable aligned perfectly. She had spent 18 months studying ballistics with the obsession of someone who had nothing else to fill the silence. While other operators socialized, Maya ran calculations. While they watched movies, she memorized wind charts. While they slept, she visualized shots in her mind, seeing the bullet's path through the air as clearly as if she could actually watch it fly. Marcus had called it her gift. the ability to see what was invisible to others. The second problem was time. The sun was moving toward the horizon. In 90 minutes, the light would change enough to make the shot impossible. Every minute that passed shifted the conditions. Maya understood she would get one attempt, maybe two if Vickers was generous. After that, the day would be over, the challenge would be suspended, and she would have proven nothing except that she could fail as spectacularly as the 13 men before her. She made her calculations without using the computer assistance most modern snipers relied on. Her mind processed the visible mirage patterns downrange, the subtle differences in vegetation movement at various distances, the feel of the wind on her exposed skin. Mathematics and instinct merged into something that looked like magic, but was actually 10,000 hours of practice concentrated into pure skill. Commander Park knelt beside her. She spoke quietly, for Maya's ears only. You do not have to do this. If you miss, they will use it against you forever. Derek will make sure of it. There is no shame in walking away from an impossible shot. Maya's eyes never left the scope. Her voice was barely audible. Marcus would have taken a shot. Park was silent for a moment. Then she smiled, though Maya could not see it. Yes, he would have, and he would have told you that you are better than he ever was. He told me that 2 weeks before he died. Said you had something he could never teach. An understanding of the shot that went beyond technique. The memory hit Maya like a physical blow. Marcus sitting across from her in the mess hall, gesturing with his fork, explaining why she was going to break every record. His absolute certainty. His complete faith. The way he had looked at her, like she was the answer to a question the SEALs did not know they were asking. She adjusted her position by millimeters. The rifle became an extension of her body, so perfectly aligned that she could not tell where she ended and it began. Her breathing slowed even further. In the space between heartbeats, there was absolute stillness. That was where the perfect shot lived. Derek Strand watched from the observation area, his arms crossed, his expression dark. Captain Bradford stood beside him, a man whose career had been built on the old ways, the traditional paths, the assumption that some things should never change. Bradford had been Derek's mentor, had guided his career, had promised him promotions that depended on maintaining certain standards. Standards that did not include women in these roles. Watch her fail, Bradford said quietly. Then we will have the evidence we need for the report. The standards are being compromised. This will prove it. Derek nodded, but something in his chest tightened. He had seen Maya's file. He knew her scores. He knew she was legitimate by every measurable standard. But admitting that meant admitting he had been wrong. It meant accepting that his resentment was about his own insecurity, not her inadequacy. It meant facing truths he had spent years avoiding. Maya's finger rested on the trigger. Not pressing. Not yet. Just touching. Feeling the precise amount of pressure required. The shot would come when every element aligned. When the wind dropped for half a second. When her heartbeat settled into the valley between beats. When the world became perfectly still. Rangemaster Vickers watched through his own spotting scope. He had seen thousands of shooters prepare for difficult shots. Most of them tensed. Most of them tried too hard. Most of them wanted it so badly that they sabotaged themselves with their own anxiety. This woman was different. She had settled into a state of relaxed readiness that he had only seen in the very best. The ones who lived in that space between trying and allowing. The ones who understood that the shot happened through you, not because of you. The wind dropped. Maya felt it before the instruments registered it. A stillness in the air that would last perhaps 3 seconds. Her finger increased pressure on the trigger with the inevitability of sunrise. The rifle fired with a crack that echoed across the range. The recoil was absorbed perfectly, her body and the weapon moving as one. She stayed in position, watching through the scope, seeing what no one else could see yet. 4,000 meters away, 6 seconds later, the target shattered. The silence that followed was different from the silence before. This was shock. This was the collective held breath of men who had just witnessed something that violated their understanding of what was possible. Rangemaster Vickers stared at his spotting scope as if it had betrayed him. His hand reached for the radio to confirm what his eyes were telling him. Target is hit. The voice crackled through the speaker system. Clean hit. Center mass. Vickers looked at Maya with an expression she could not quite read. Respect, certainly, but also something else. Confusion, perhaps. The kind that came when your fundamental assumptions about the world shifted without warning. He lowered his scope and met her eyes. That was exceptional shooting, Lieutenant Commander. Possibly the finest shot I have witnessed in my career. Maya rose from her position with the same economical grace she had shown settling into it. She cleared the weapon, checked the chamber, and handed the rifle back to Vickers with a small nod. No es mal, no celebración. Just the quiet satisfaction of a job completed exactly as it should have been. Derek Strand pushed through the small crowd that had gathered. His face had gone from red to pale, his hands clenched at his sides. That was luck. Pure luck. Wind dropped at exactly the right moment. Anyone could have made that shot if the conditions aligned. Commander Park turned to face him, her expression ice. Then you should have waited for the conditions to align, Master Chief. That is what separates good shooters from great ones. Understanding when to take the shot. Derek's jaw worked. Make her do it again. If it was not luck, she can replicate it. One shot proves nothing. The challenge requires 3 successful hits to claim victory. Make her shoot again. Vickers considered this. The regulations were clear. 3 successful hits at 4,000 meters would establish a new record, would validate the capability beyond any reasonable doubt. He looked at Maya. Are you willing to attempt 2 more shots, Lieutenant Commander? Maya's answer was to move back to the firing line. She accepted the rifle again, settled into position with that same water-finding level naturalness. Derek watched with barely concealed rage. He needed her to fail. He needed it with a desperation that went beyond professional rivalry, beyond even his prejudice about women in special operations. He needed it because if she succeeded, it meant something about him, something he did not want to face. The second shot took longer to set up. The wind had become more erratic as the sun dropped lower. The conditions were actually harder now than they had been for the first shot. Maya adjusted her position twice, waited through 3 wind cycles, let 2 apparently good opportunities pass because something felt wrong. Marcus had taught her to trust that feeling. Your subconscious processes more data than your conscious mind can track, he had said. If something feels off, it is off. On the 4th wind cycle, she fired. The round flew true. For 1,000 meters downrange, the target shattered again. The observers were no longer silent. Low conversations rippled through them. This was not luck. This was skill operating at a level most of them had never seen. Even the most skeptical could not deny what their eyes confirmed. 2 for 2 at an impossible distance with worsening conditions. Captain Bradford leaned close to Derek, his voice low and urgent. We need to stop this. If she makes the 3rd shot, the media will run with it. Female SEAL sets new record. Every politician pushing diversity quotas will use her as proof. We will lose the argument about standards. Derek's mind raced. There had to be a way. Some technicality. Some regulation she had violated. But even as he searched for it, he knew the truth. She had done everything correctly. More than correctly. Perfectly. And that perfection was about to destroy everything he had built his identity around. Maya prepared for the 3rd shot. Her body had settled into the rhythm now, moving through the sequence with the ease of long practice. Check the rifle. Settle into position. Read the wind. Calculate the shot. Find the stillness. Let the shot happen. She had done this so many times in training that it felt like muscle memory, like breathing, like something her body knew how to do without conscious thought. But this time was different. This time Derek Strand moved onto the range. He walked out 30 meters and stood there directly in her line of sight, his body breaking the concentration she needed. Commander Park started forward, her hand moving toward Derek, but Vickers held up a hand to stop her. He wanted to see what Maya would do, how she would handle interference. Combat was never clean. Combat was chaos and improvisation. A sniper who could only perform under perfect conditions was not really a sniper at all. Maya's breathing did not change. Her position did not shift. She simply waited. Derek stood there for 10 seconds, 20, 30. trying to break her focus, trying to force her into making a mistake or backing down. The sun continued its descent. The light continued to change. Every second that passed made the shot harder. Derek finally stepped aside, convinced he had rattled her enough. He moved back to the observation area with a slight smile. Let's see how she does now. Maya did not rush. She let her body resettle. Let her breathing find its rhythm again. Let the interference drain away like water off stone. Marcus had prepared her for this too. You will face conditions worse than weather, he had told her. You will face people who want you to fail. People who will do everything they can to break your concentration. Your job is to be unbreakable. She found the shot, the wind, the perfect moment. Her finger pressed the trigger with the same inevitability as before. The rifle cracked. The round flew. 6 seconds of flight through turbulent air across a distance that defied reasonable expectations. The target shattered for the third time. Rangemaster Vickers keyed his radio. Confirm all 3 hits. I need verification from downrange observers before I make this official. The response took 30 seconds. All 3 confirmed. Sir, not just hits. All 3 rounds within a 6-inch group at 4,000 meters. I have never seen anything like this. Vickers turned to Maya as she cleared the weapon and stood. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, you have just set a new naval special warfare record. 3 consecutive hits at 4,000 meters. This will be documented and forwarded to the appropriate commands. Congratulations. Maya nodded once. Then she spoke, her voice carrying across the now quiet range. I would like to dedicate this performance to Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun. He taught me everything I know about being a sniper. He believed I could do this before I believed it myself. This record belongs to him. The mention of Marcus's name made several people shift uncomfortably. Those who knew the story. Those who knew how he had died. Derek Strand's face drained of color entirely. His hands started to shake. Commander Park saw it, and her eyes narrowed. She filed that reaction away for later examination. Vickers extended his hand to Maya. She shook it firmly. He leaned close and spoke quietly. Between you and me, Lieutenant Commander, that was the most impressive display of shooting I have seen in 32 years of service. You have a gift. Use it well. Maya looked past him to where Derek stood rigid and pale. Then she looked back at Vickers. I intend to, sir. The celebration lasted exactly as long as it took for Derek Strand to find his voice again. He stepped forward before Vickers could dismiss the assembly, his posture rigid with barely controlled fury. His words came out clipped and sharp, each one calculated for maximum impact. Rangemaster, I formally request that Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo participate in the full Advanced Precision Marksman Qualification course. 3 shots at a static target in controlled conditions, while impressive, do not demonstrate the full spectrum of capabilities required for operational deployment. If she wishes to claim superiority in this discipline, she should prove it under the same standards we all face. Vickers raised an eyebrow. The qualification course was brutal. 72 hours of continuous testing under degraded conditions. Moving targets, unknown distances, compromised positions, equipment failures deliberately introduced to test adaptability. It was designed to break even the most skilled shooters, to find the limits of their capability and then push past those limits. Pass rate was below 30%. Derek continued, his voice gaining confidence. I'm not questioning her skill, sir. I am simply advocating for standardized evaluation. Every sniper in naval special warfare has completed this course. If Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo intends to serve as an operational sniper, she should meet the same benchmark. It was a clever trap. Refusing would suggest Maya feared the challenge. Accepting meant 3 days of hell with Derek and his allies controlling many of the variables. Either way, he wants something back. Commander Park started to object, but Maya's hand touched her arm gently. A silent communication. Park closed her mouth and waited. Maya looked at Derek directly for the first time since making her shots. Her gaze was level and unflinching. When do we start, Master Chief? Derek's smile was predatory. Tomorrow morning. 0500. Bring your own equipment. The course is 72 hours continuous. No breaks except what is mandated by safety regulations. Weather forecast shows rain moving in, so conditions will be less than ideal. I trust that will not be a problem. Maya's expression did not change. Not a problem at all. See you at 0500. The crowd dispersed slowly, conversations hushed and speculative. Maya walked toward the armory with Commander Park at her side. Once they were out of earshot, Park spoke in a low, urgent tone. You know this is a setup. Derek will do everything he can to make you fail. He has friends who run portions of that course. They will engineer failures. They will create impossible scenarios. This is not about testing your capability. This is about destroying your credibility. Maya nodded. I know, but if I refuse, the Whisper campaign starts immediately. She was good for one day under perfect conditions. She could not handle the real pressure. By next month, my record becomes an asterisk, a fluke. Within a year, it disappears entirely. Park could not argue with that logic. She had watched it happen to other women who achieved excellence. The goalpost always moved. The standards always shifted just enough to maintain the barrier. But she also knew Maya was walking into a meat grinder designed specifically for her. They reached the armory where Maya's personal rifle waited. A custom accuracy international AXMC that she had spent 3 years learning to love. Every scratch on it told a story. Every adjustment was calibrated to her exact specifications. She ran her hand along the stock with the affection some people reserve for family. Marcus had helped her build this rifle, had stayed up with her through countless nights of testing and adjustment, had celebrated with her when she finally achieved the perfect setup. His fingerprints were still on the scope rings, preserved under a layer of clear coat she had applied after his death. A permanent reminder of his hands guiding hers. Commander Park watched her with the rifle and made a decision. I'm going to tell you something that is not common knowledge. Something about Marcus that might help you understand what you are walking into. Maya looked up, her full attention shifting to Park. Marcus did not die the way the official report says. Park's voice was barely above a whisper. The report says enemy contact during a reconnaissance mission. Hostile fire. Died, saving his team. All of that is technically true, but it leaves out the most important part. Maya's hands stilled on the rifle. There was friendly fire involved. A targeting error from an air asset. Marcus saw it coming before anyone else. He pushed 3 SEALs out of the blast radius. But he could not save himself and you. He chose you, pushed you clear, and took the impact himself. Park paused, watching Maya's face. The air asset that made the error was being directed by a SEAL on the ground. A joint terminal attack controller who had been promoted beyond his actual capability, who made a mistake that cost Marcus his life. Maya's voice was hollow. Who was the JEAC? Derek Strand. Park let that sink in. He was bumped up to Master Chief 6 months later. The incident was classified. The investigation was buried. Marcus became a hero. Derek became untouchable because acknowledging his error would mean acknowledging that the promotion system failed. That politics mattered more than competence. The world tilted slightly. Maya sat down hard on the bench beside her rifle case. 18 months of silence suddenly made a different kind of sense. She had not known. She had grieved without understanding the full truth. Had blamed herself for surviving when Marcus died. Had never suspected that the man mocking her, dismissing her, trying to destroy her credibility, was the one actually responsible. Park continued, I am telling you this now because you need to understand what you are facing. Derek is not just defending his prejudices. He is defending himself against the truth. If you succeed, if you prove beyond any doubt that you are exceptional, it raises questions about why Marcus believed in you so much, about what Marcus knew, about whether Derek deserves his rank and reputation. He will do anything to prevent that examination. Maya's breathing had gone shallow. Her hands trembled for the first time since Derek had started his psychological assault. Park knelt in front of her, gripping her shoulders. Listen to me. You can walk away from this. You have already proven yourself with those 3 shots. No one who matters will think less of you for refusing Derek's challenge. You do not owe anyone 3 days of torture at the hands of the man who killed your best friend. But even as Park said it, she knew it was not true. Maya owed this to Marcus, owed it to herself, owed it to every woman who would come after her and face the same barriers. Walking away was not an option. It had never been an option. Maya stood up. Her hands were steady again. Her breathing had returned to normal. When she spoke, her voice carried a cold determination that made Park take an involuntary step back. I'm going to qualify. I'm going to score higher than Derek has ever scored. And when I do, I'm going to make sure everyone understands exactly what Marcus knew about being a SEAL. That it has nothing to do with gender and everything to do with heart. Park smiled despite herself. Marcus chose well when he chose you as his legacy. They spent the next 6 hours preparing, checking equipment, running scenarios, discussing the likely sabotage attempts and how to counter them. Park called in favors, ensured that at least some of the course evaluators would be neutral observers who could not be compromised. It was not enough to guarantee fairness, but it was better than nothing. As midnight approached, Maya cleaned her rifle one final time. The rhythm of it was meditative, soothing. Marcus had taught her this ritual, the care of the weapon as a form of mental preparation. By the time she finished, her mind was clear and focused. She slept for 4 hours, dreamless and complete. When her alarm sounded at 0400, she woke instantly, already knowing exactly what the day would bring and exactly how she would face it. The rain started at 0445, 15 minutes before the course officially began. Not the gentle California drizzle that barely qualified as weather, but a driving storm that turned the range into a test of endurance before a single shot was fired. Maya stood at the starting line with her rifle case, water already running down her face, soaking through her gear. She did not wipe it away. Discomfort was just another variable to manage. Derek Strand arrived exactly at 0500 with Captain Bradford and 2 other evaluators Maya did not recognize. All of them wore rain gear. All of them looked dry and comfortable. Derek carried a clipboard protected by a waterproof cover. His smile was tight and satisfied. The weather was working in his favor already. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, welcome to the Advanced Precision Marksman Qualification Course. Derek's voice carried false professionalism. Over the next 72 hours, you will complete 27 shooting scenarios under various conditions. Each scenario is scored on accuracy, speed, and adaptability. Minimum passing score is 70%. Any equipment failure is your responsibility to resolve. Any safety violation results in immediate disqualification. Do you understand these parameters? Maya nodded once. Understood. Derek gestured to the rifle case in her hands. You will secure your primary weapon in the armory. For the first 12 scenarios, you will use issued equipment only. This tests your ability to adapt to unfamiliar platforms, as you would in a field situation where your primary weapon is unavailable. It was the first sabotage. Maya had spent 3 years perfecting her relationship with her custom rifle. Forcing her to use unfamiliar weapons put her at an immediate disadvantage. But she had expected this. Park had warned her that Derek would separate her from anything that gave her an edge. She handed her rifle case to one of the evaluators without protest. Where is the issued equipment? Derek led her to a weapons rack where 5 different rifles waited. A Barrett M82, a Remington 700, a SR-25, M110, and a rifle she did not immediately recognize. All of them were standard military issue. All of them were also clearly used, their maintenance questionable, their zero potentially off by unknown amounts. Choose one. You have 5 minutes to familiarize yourself before the first scenario begins. Maya moved to the rifles and began inspecting them with systematic efficiency. The Barrett was too heavy for the mixed distance scenarios she expected. The Remington had a loose scope mount she could feel when she checked it. The SR-25 had a trigger that felt gritty and inconsistent. The M110 seemed solid until she checked the bore and found fouling that suggested it had not been properly cleaned after its last use. The 5th rifle was a Chaytak M200 intervention, uncommon in standard military inventory. When she picked it up, she understood why Derek had included it. The rifle had been deliberately sabotaged. The scope was mounted slightly off-axis. Not enough to be obvious at first glance, but enough to throw off any shot beyond 300 meters. It was a trap for someone who did not check carefully. She chose the M110 despite the fouling. It would take time to clean properly, but the rifle itself was mechanically sound. She could work with mechanical soundness. For minutes remained. She stripped the bolt, ran a cleaning rod through the bore twice with solvent-soaked patches, reassembled, and did a function check. Not perfect, but functional. First scenario. Derek checked his clipboard. 400 meters. 3 targets. Wind is gusting 15 to 20 knots from the northwest. You have 2 minutes to engage all 3 targets. Minimum 2 hits required to pass this scenario. Time starts when you reach the firing line. Maya moved to the line and settled into position. The M110 felt foreign after years with her custom rifle. The stock was too long. The trigger pull was heavier than she preferred. The scope reticle was different from what she had trained with. But Marcus had drilled adaptability into her until it became second nature. A rifle is just a tool. You are the weapon. She found the first target through the scope. Adjusted for the gusty wind based on the vegetation movement she could see. The fouling in the bore would affect velocity slightly, which meant her elevation would be off. She compensated by aiming 2 inches high. Exhaled. Fired. The target went down. Second target. Different angle. Wind had shifted slightly. She adjusted and fired. Hit. Third target. 70 seconds had elapsed. She had 30 seconds remaining. This target was partially obscured by a barrier. Only a small portion was visible. The wind gusted hard just as she settled on it. She waited 3 seconds for the gust to pass. Fired. The target went down with 5 seconds to spare. Derek's expression flickered with annoyance. 3 for 3. Scenario 1 complete. Score, 100%. The scenarios came faster after that. 500 meters with a time limit. 700 meters from an awkward position. 300 meters through a gap in a wall. Each one designed to push her past comfort, to find the breaking point where unfamiliar equipment and difficult conditions would cause failure. Maya passed them all. Not perfectly. One scenario, she scored only 85% because the fouled barrel caused a slight miss on a long-range shot. But she stayed well above the 70% minimum. By scenario 8, Derek had stopped smiling. Captain Bradford was making notes with increasing frequency, his expression dark. Scenario 9 was when the real sabotage began. 600 meters. 5 targets. For minutes. Standard parameters. But when Maya settled into position and looked through the scope, she immediately saw the problem. The scope had been deliberately dezeroed since the last scenario. Someone had accessed her rifle during the mandatory rest period between sets and adjusted the turrets. Her point of impact would be off by at least 6 inches. She could recalibrate, but that would take time she did not have. For minutes to engage 5 targets will be tight, even with a properly zeroed rifle. Derek stood behind her with a stopwatch, clearly expecting her to either waste time adjusting or miss repeatedly and fail the scenario. Maya did neither. She looked through the scope, saw where her point of impact was relative to point of aim, and memorized the offset. 6 inches low and 3 inches right. She could hold over and compensate. It would be harder. It would require perfect execution. But it was possible. She engaged the first target holding high and left to compensate for the zero problem and the wind. Hit. Second target. Hit. Third target. Hit. She was methodical and fast. Each shot calculated with the offset in mind. Fourth target. Hit. Fifth target with 30 seconds remaining. She adjusted for a wind shift, held her compensation point, and fired. Hit. 5 for 5 with a sabotaged rifle. Derek's clipboard nearly slipped from his hands. The day continued like that. Sabotage followed by adaptation, followed by success. By the time the 12 equipment scenarios were complete, Maya had scored an average of 92%, higher than most SEALs scored with their own familiar rifles. Derek's face had gone from confident to confused to quietly furious. Captain Bradford pulled Derek aside during the mandated rest period. This is not working. She is adapting to everything we throw at her. If anything, we are making her look more impressive by failing to break her. Derek's voice was low and harsh. The real test starts tomorrow. Scenarios 13 through 27 use her own rifle. We cannot sabotage the equipment anymore, but we can sabotage her. Sleep deprivation, psychological pressure. I want evaluators questioning every decision she makes. I want her second-guessing herself until she breaks. Bradford nodded slowly. And if she does not break, then we make sure the final scenario is impossible. Derek's eyes were cold. Literally impossible. We give her a shot that cannot be made, and we disqualify her when she fails it. Whatever it takes. She does not leave this course with a passing grade. 30 meters away, Maya sat with her back against a wall, eating an energy bar and drinking water. Her body was tired, but functional. Her mind was clear. She knew they would escalate. Knew tomorrow would be worse. But she also knew something Derek did not. Every time they tried to break her and failed, they proved Marcus had been right about her. And that knowledge was armor nothing could penetrate. Day 2 began at 0300 with a scenario designed to shatter Maya's composure. She was awakened from her mandated 4-hour rest period by Derek Strand's voice over the loudspeaker system, artificially cheerful and cutting through the darkness like a blade. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, report to Range 7 immediately. Scenario 13 begins in 10 minutes. Failure to report on-time results in automatic disqualification. Maya was dressed and moving in 90 seconds. Range 7 was on the far side of the facility, a deliberate choice to force her to sprint after minimal sleep. Her body protested but obeyed. She arrived with 3 minutes to spare, breathing hard but controlled. Derek stood waiting with her custom rifle. Beside him was Commander Park, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes communicating volumes. Maya understood immediately. Park had been ordered to observe, to witness whatever Derek had planned, to serve as official documentation that everything was done by regulation. Scenario 13. Derek's voice had lost its false cheerfulness. It was flat now, professional, dangerous. 800 meters. Single target. Wind is variable. Light is minimal. You will take the shot from a compromised position. He gestured to a platform that had been erected overnight. It was unstable, deliberately engineered to sway with any movement. And you will do it in the next 60 seconds, or you fail this scenario. Maya took her rifle and moved to the platform. It shifted under her weight, swaying like a boat in rough water. Finding stability on this would be nearly impossible. Finding it in 60 seconds was designed to be completely impossible. But she had spent 18 months training for impossible. She settled into position, her body adjusting to the platform's movement, finding the rhythm of its sway. Instead of fighting the instability, she moved with it, became part of it. At the bottom of each sway, there was a half-second window where the platform stilled. That was her shot window. She found the target through her scope, calculated the hold based on wind and distance, and waited for the platform to complete its cycle. The rifle cracked. 800 meters away, the target dropped. 42 seconds had elapsed. Derek's face twitched. Scenario 13 complete. Score, 100%. He paused, then added with barely concealed venom, lucky shot. Maya said nothing. She simply cleared her rifle and waited for the next scenario. The day progressed with relentless intensity. Scenario 14 was a 1,200-meter shot in full daylight with deliberate glare positioned to blind her scope. She adjusted her position until the glare was minimized and made the shot. Scenario 15 was multiple moving targets at varying distances with a time limit that seemed designed for failure. She engaged them in order of difficulty, fastest targets first, and completed with 8 seconds remaining. By Scenario 18, Derek had stopped announcing scores. He simply marked his clipboard with harsh slashes and moved to the next test. Captain Bradford watched with increasing concern. Maya was not just passing. She was excelling. Her average score was now 94% across 18 scenarios, higher than Derek's own qualifying score from 3 years ago. It was during the mandatory rest period after Scenario 18 that Commander Park pulled Maya aside. They walked to a section of the range where the audio surveillance was limited, where they could speak with some privacy. Park's voice was tight with controlled anger. I need to tell you something else about Marcus. Something I should have told you yesterday, but I was not sure you were ready to hear it. Now, watching what Derek is putting you through, I know you need the complete truth. Maya waited, her expression calm despite the exhaustion pulling at her. Marcus knew about Derek's error. Park watched Maya's face carefully. He knew that Derek had made the targeting mistake. He knew because he was there, monitoring the communications. He heard Derek give the wrong coordinates to the air asset. Heard him realize his error too late. Marcus pushed you clear and took the blast himself. But before he died, he sent an encrypted message to me. For words, Derek Strand killed me. The world seemed to stop. Maya's breathing continued, but everything else froze. The noise of the range faded. The rain that had started again became distant. Her vision narrowed to Park's face, to the truth written there. Park continued, her voice dropping even lower. The investigation was buried because Derek's mentor, Captain Bradford, had just been promoted to a position on the promotion board. Acknowledging Derek's error would have reflected badly on Bradford's judgment in pushing for his advancement. So the incident was classified. The message Marcus sent me was deemed inadmissible because it could not be verified. And Marcus became a hero who died in enemy contact instead of a victim of friendly fire and criminal negligence. Maya's hands began to shake, not with fear, not with grief, with a rage so pure and cold it felt like clarity. Every mocking word from Derek, every sabotage attempt, every smirk and dismissal, all of it from the man who had killed her best friend and buried the truth to protect his career. Park gripped Maya's shoulders. Listen to me carefully. You cannot confront him. Not yet. Not here. If you lose your composure, he wins. He gets you disqualified, gets you removed from consideration for any operational role, and the truth stays buried forever. But if you finish this course, if you qualify with scores that cannot be disputed, then we have leverage. Then we can demand a review of Marcus's death. Then we can expose what really happened. Maya's voice, when she finally spoke, was barely audible, but harder than steel. What are the remaining scenarios? Park pulled out her own notes. Scenarios 19 through 26 are standard qualification tests. Long range, short range, multiple targets, time pressure. All legitimate. But Scenario 27 is being designed right now by Derek and Bradford. I do not know what it will be, but I know it is meant to destroy you. They're creating something impossible and calling it a final test. Then I will do the impossible. Maya's eyes met Park's. Marcus did the impossible when he saved me. I owe him nothing less than everything I have. If Derek wants to see me fail, he's going to have to watch me succeed first. Park smiled despite the gravity of the situation. Marcus chose well. He always said you had something the rest of us lacked. A fire that burned cold instead of hot. The kind that does not consume you, but forges you into something unbreakable. They returned to the range as Scenario 19 was announced. Maya took her position with her custom rifle, the one Marcus had helped her build, the one that carried his fingerprints under clear coat on the scope rings. She thought about him as she settled into her shooting position, thought about his belief in her, thought about his sacrifice, thought about the truth that Derek had buried. Scenario 19 was 1,000 meters in heavy rain. She made the shot. Scenario 20 was 1,500 meters with multiple wind shifts. She made the shot. Scenario 21 was a moving target at 800 meters. She made the shot. Each success was not just about qualification. It was about justice. It was about proving that Marcus had been right to believe in her, right to save her, right to trust that she would become something extraordinary. By the end of day 2, Maya had completed 26 scenarios with an average score of 95%. The other evaluators, the ones not compromised by Derek and Bradford, were exchanging looks of amazement. This was the highest qualification score in the history of the course, higher than any SEAL had ever achieved. Derek stood in the rain outside the range office, his face pale in the artificial lights. Captain Bradford stood beside him, equally shaken. They had thrown everything at her. equipment sabotage, sleep deprivation, psychological warfare, impossible scenario. None of it had worked. She had adapted to every challenge, overcome every obstacle, turned every attempt to break her into another demonstration of exceptional skill. Bradford's voice was quiet and urgent. Scenario 27 has to work. If she passes this course with these scores, questions will be asked. About why Marcus believed in her so much. About what Marcus might have known. About what we buried. We cannot let that happen. Derek nodded slowly. Scenario 27 will be impossible. Not difficult. Not challenging. Actually impossible. No one can make the shot I am designing. When she fails, we document it as proof that her previous success was environmental luck. We bury her credibility before it can bury us. Inside the barracks, Maya cleaned her rifle with methodical care. Tomorrow would bring the final test. Tomorrow Derek would try to destroy her with one impossible scenario. Tomorrow she would show him exactly what Marcus Chun had seen in her from the very beginning. A sniper without equal. A warrior without compromise. A promise that could not be broken. Day 3. The final day. Maya woke at 0400 without an alarm. Her body trained through years of discipline to wake when needed. She had slept 3 hours. It was enough. Marcus had taught her that sleep was a resource to be managed, not a requirement to be met. In combat, you operated on whatever rest you could steal between moments of crisis. This was no different. She found Commander Park waiting outside the barracks with 2 cups of coffee. They stood together in the pre-dawn darkness, saying nothing for several minutes. The silence between them was comfortable, the kind that came from shared understanding. Park had become more than a superior officer during these 3 days. She had become an ally in a fight that went beyond military qualification. Park finally spoke. I pulled some strings. Got Range Master Vickers assigned as the primary evaluator for Scenario 27. Derek protested, but regulations are clear. For final qualification scenarios, the senior range officer has authority. Vickers cannot be bought or intimidated. Whatever Derek has planned, at least it will be evaluated fairly. Maya nodded her thanks. The coffee was strong and bitter, exactly what she needed. Her hands were steady around the cup. Her mind was already moving through possibilities, preparing for whatever impossible challenge waited ahead. They designed it to break you. Park continued. I do not know the specifics, but I know Derek spent 6 hours yesterday setting it up personally. He brought in equipment from 3 different facilities. Whatever this scenario is, he has engineered it to be his final word on whether women belong in naval special warfare. Then I will make sure my performance is my final word on what Marcus Chun knew about excellence. Maya's voice was quiet but absolute. Derek can design whatever he wants. I will adapt to it. The official brief for Scenario 27 came at 0600. The entire qualification cadre assembled, along with several senior officers who had arrived specifically to observe this final test. Word had spread through the naval special warfare community about Maya's performance. 95% average across 26 scenarios. It was unprecedented. People wanted to see if she could maintain that standard through whatever Derek had planned. Derek stood at the front of the briefing room, his face carefully neutral, his voice professionally detached. Scenario 27 is an advanced multi-variable engagement designed to test adaptability, precision, and decision-making under extreme pressure. He clicked to the first slide. The target is located at 2,200 meters. Effective range for the issued rifle platform is 1,800 meters. You will be engaging beyond optimal capability parameters. Maya showed no reaction. 2,200 meters was at the extreme edge of what was possible with a rifle. It would require perfect conditions and flawless execution. Derek continued. The shooting position is elevated and unstable. Wind conditions are gusting and variable. Light conditions are suboptimal. You will have 1 round, 1 attempt. Failure to hit the target results in scenario failure and brings your overall qualification score below the 70% minimum required to pass this course. The mathematics of it clicked into place in Maya's mind. If she failed this scenario, her overall average would drop to 68%. After 3 days of near-perfect performance, one failure would disqualify her entirely. Derek had engineered the scenario parameters specifically to create that outcome. Captain Bradford added his voice from the back of the room. Additionally, the target is a precision plate measuring 8 inches in diameter. At 2,200 meters, this represents an angular target of approximately 0.36 minutes of angle. For reference, this is smaller than the standard qualification target at this distance by a factor of 4. Commander Park's jaw tightened. She started to object, but Vickers held up a hand. He looked at Derek with an expression of cold assessment. Master Chief Strand, is there any operational scenario that would require this specific combination of variables? Derek met his gaze without flinching. Advanced urban counterterrorism operations, sir. Hostage situations where the threat is at extreme distance in an elevated position with minimal exposure. A sniper must be capable of making this shot or the mission fails and hostages die. It was a plausible lie, just barely. Vickers clearly did not believe it, but regulations allowed Derek to design the scenario parameters as long as they could be theoretically justified. He turned to Maya. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, do you understand the requirements of this scenario? Yes, sir. Maya's voice was steady. Do you wish to attempt this scenario, or do you wish to withdraw from the qualification course? It was a fair question. A graceful exit. She could withdraw, claim the course parameters were unreasonable, and no one would officially fault her for it. Her reputation from the 4,000-meter shots would remain intact. Derek would win by technicality, but he would not have the satisfaction of watching her fail. Maya looked at Derek. Their eyes met. In that moment, she saw his desperation, his fear, his need for her to either quit or fail. She saw the man who had killed Marcus and buried the truth. She saw the coward hiding behind regulations and rank and political protection. I will attempt the scenario, sir. The range was silent as they walked to the shooting position. Derek had chosen his ground well. The platform was 20 feet off the ground, accessible only by a narrow ladder. It swayed visibly in the wind. The position faced directly into the rising sun, which would create glare issues for the first 30 minutes of available light. The wind was gusting between 15 and 25 knots, shifting direction unpredictably. 2,200 meters downrange, barely visible even through high-powered optics, was the 8-inch target plate. A dot, a speck, an impossibility. Maya climbed to the platform with her rifle. The structure swayed under her weight, more unstable than the platform from Scenario 13. Derek had engineered maximum difficulty into every variable. She settled into position and immediately understood the full scope of what he had created. The platform's sway had a 3-second cycle. At the peak of each sway, her point of aim shifted by nearly 12 inches. The wind gusts were strong enough to push a round-off target by 18 inches at this distance. The glare from the sun made acquiring a clear sight picture nearly impossible, and the target was so small that even a perfect shot could miss due to minor variations in ammunition performance. Commander Park stood at ground level, her hands clenched at her sides. This was not a test. This was an execution. Derek had created a scenario where failure was not just likely, but virtually guaranteed. Even Marcus at his absolute best would have struggled with this shot. Expecting Maya to make it after 3 days of continuous testing and minimal sleep was beyond unreasonable. Maya began her calculations. The platform sway could be timed and compensated for. The wind patterns had some predictability if she watched long enough. The glare could be managed by waiting for the sun to climb higher. The small target required perfect trigger control and follow-through. None of it was impossible individually, but all of it together, with one shot and total pressure, pushed past the boundaries of reasonable expectation. She waited. Minutes passed. 10 minutes. 15. Derek shifted impatiently. The scenario parameters did not include a time limit because he had assumed the difficulty would make timing irrelevant. Now he watched as Maya simply breathed, observed, calculated, and prepared with infinite patience. Commander Park recognized what Maya was doing. She was applying every lesson Marcus had ever taught her, patience over pressure, understanding over urgency, precision over speed. Marcus had always said that the hardest part of being a sniper was not making the shot. It was having the discipline to wait for the right moment to make the shot. 20 minutes. The sun had climbed higher. The glare was less severe. Maya had mapped the wind patterns and found a rhythm to them. Every 45 seconds, there was a 3-second window where the gusts calmed slightly. The platform's sway was consistent. She could time it. She could make this work. She found her breathing rhythm, slow and controlled. Her finger rested on the trigger with perfect pressure distribution. Her mind went quiet. All the noise of the world faded. Derek's presence, the observers, the politics, the injustice, all of it dissolved until there was only the shot, only the target, only the perfect execution of everything Marcus had taught her. The wind calmed. The platform reached the bottom of its sway. Her finger increased pressure with the smoothness of inevitability. The rifle cracked. The recoil was absorbed perfectly. She stayed in position, watching through the scope, knowing before anyone else could confirm what had happened. 2,200 meters away, the 8-inch target plate rang with metallic clarity as the round struck center mass. The sound of the round striking the target plate echoed across the range like a bell announcing victory. For 3 full seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. The impossibility of what had just happened required time to process. Rangemaster Vickers was the first to react, raising his spotting scope to verify what his ears had already confirmed. Target hit. Center mass. His voice carried across the silent range with the weight of absolute authority. Scenario 27 complete. Score 100%. Derek Strand's face went through a series of transformations. Disbelief, denial, rage, and something worse than rage. Fear. Pure, undisguised fear. Because Maya had not just passed his impossible scenario. She had shattered it, had taken his carefully engineered trap and turned it into the most spectacular demonstration of skill anyone on that range had ever witnessed. Captain Bradford moved forward quickly, his voice sharp. I request verification. That target is 2,200 meters distant. We need confirmation that the round actually struck the designated scoring zone and was not simply a near miss that contacted the plate edge. Vickers nodded. Standard procedure. He keyed his radio. Downrange observers, I need precise impact location on the target plate. The response came 30 seconds later. Impact is dead center. Margin of error from perfect center is less than 1 inch. This is the most precise shot I have observed in 28 years of range operation. The assembled observers erupted in low conversation. Several senior officers who had come to watch Maya fail were now staring at her with expressions that ranged from amazement to confusion. Commander Park allowed herself a small smile. Maya remained on the platform, clearing her rifle with the same methodical care she applied to everything, her expression unchanged. Vickers looked at his tablet, running final calculations. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, your performance across all 27 scenarios of the Advanced Precision Marksman Qualification Course results in a final score of 96%. This is the highest qualification score in the recorded history of this course. You have not only passed, you have set a new standard. Congratulations. Maya climbed down from the platform. Her legs were steady despite 3 days of minimal sleep and maximum stress. She faced Vickers and rendered a proper salute. Thank you, sir. I am honored to have completed the qualification. Derek found his voice, though it came out strained and desperate. I want to file a formal protest. The conditions for Scenario 27 were not properly controlled. Wind measurement may have been inaccurate. The platform stability was not verified within the last hour. There are too many variables that could have resulted in an invalid test. Vickers turned to Derek with an expression of cold contempt. Master Chief Strand, you personally designed every parameter of Scenario 27. You supervised the platform construction. You selected the target distance and size. You chose the time window and environmental conditions. Are you now claiming that your own scenario design was flawed? Derek's mouth opened and closed without sound. He was trapped by his own engineering. Admitting the scenario was invalid meant admitting he had created an unfair test. Accepting the scenario as valid meant accepting Maya's perfect performance. Vickers continued, his voice taking on an edge. Furthermore, your protest implies that Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo benefited from favorable conditions. I observed those conditions personally. They were brutal. The shot she made was objectively more difficult than any shot required in standard qualification. If anything, her performance is understated by the metrics. Captain Bradford stepped forward. Range Master, regardless of personal performance, we must consider whether this qualification course truly tested all relevant variables. Perhaps a supplementary evaluation is warranted before final certification is granted. Commander Park moved to intercept, her voice cutting. Captain Bradford, are you suggesting that a 96% score across 27 scenarios, including perfect performance on an impossible final test, is somehow insufficient for qualification? Would you apply this same standard to male candidates? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Bradford's face reddened. This has nothing to do with gender. This is about maintaining standards that ensure operational readiness. Then you should be celebrating. Park gestured to Maya. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo just demonstrated operational readiness beyond anything this course has ever measured. She adapted to equipment sabotage. She performed under sleep deprivation. She executed shots that your own chosen Master Chief deemed impossible. What additional standard are you proposing she meet that has not already been exceeded? Bradford had no answer. The logic was irrefutable. Derek stood beside him, his hands trembling slightly, his career built on lies now teetering on the edge of exposure. Because Maya's success did more than prove her capability. It raised questions. Why would Marcus Chan believe so completely in this woman? What had he seen in her that made him willing to die, protecting her potential? And what else might Marcus have known that never made it into official reports? Vickers made a decision. He had spent 32 years in the Marines watching politics corrupt merit, watching fear disguise itself as standards, watching potential destroyed by prejudice. He was not going to let it happen today. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo's qualification is certified effective immediately. Her scores will be entered into the permanent record. Her performance will be used as the new benchmark for excellence in this discipline. This certification is final and not subject to protest or review. Do I make myself clear? His authority was absolute in this context. Derek and Bradford had no regulatory recourse. They could only watch as their attempt to destroy Maya became instead the moment that elevated her beyond their reach. Maya stood at attention, her rifle slung across her back, her face showing nothing of the triumph she must have felt. She had won, not just the qualification, not just the validation. She had won the right to expose the truth about Marcus without the credibility destruction Derek had tried to engineer. The assembled crowd began to disperse. Several senior officers approached Maya to offer congratulations. A Navy captain who commanded a SEAL team asked if she would consider joining his unit as their primary sniper. A Marine colonel wanted to discuss inter-service training opportunities. In the span of 30 minutes, Maya went from being questioned and doubted to being recruited and respected. Derek and Bradford walked to the parking area in silence. When they were far enough from others, Bradford spoke in a low, urgent tone. She is going to request a review of Marcus Chen's death. With her credibility now established, with her scores documented, she has the platform to demand answers. When that investigation reopens, our involvement will be exposed. Derek leaned against a vehicle, his face pale. What do we do? Bradford was quiet for a long moment. We have one option. We go to the Inspector General ourselves. Before she does, we claim we have discovered irregularities in the original investigation of Chen's death. We volunteer information in a controlled way that minimizes our culpability. We frame it as an honest mistake made under combat stress rather than negligence and cover-up. If we control the narrative, we might survive with reprimands rather than court-martial. Derek looked sick. That destroys my career anyway. Bradford's voice was cold. Your career was destroyed the moment you gave those wrong coordinates to the air asset. Everything since then has been borrowed time. The question now is whether you lose your rank and pension or whether you lose your freedom. I suggest you choose the former. They stood in silence, watching as Maya walked across the range of Commander Park, the two of them talking quietly, planning their next move. Derek had spent 3 days trying to prove Maya did not belong. Instead, he had proven she was exceptional, and in doing so, he had sealed his own fate. Inside the operations building, Vickers was already composing his official report. His words were precise and unambiguous. Lieutenant Commander Maya Okonkwo demonstrated sniper capabilities beyond any previously documented in naval special warfare. Her performance under deliberately adverse conditions suggests not only exceptional technical skill, but also psychological resilience of the highest order. It is this evaluator's professional opinion that she represents the future standard of excellence for this discipline. He paused, then added one more line. Her dedication of this performance to the memory of Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chin speaks to the character and values that make her not just an exceptional sniper, but an exceptional naval officer. Marcus Chin's faith in her capability has been thoroughly vindicated. The report would go into permanent records. It would be read by promotion boards and assignment officers. It would follow Maya throughout her career, and it would ensure that anyone who questioned her credentials would have to confront documented evidence of her superiority. The summons came 48 hours after Maya's qualification. A formal request for her presence at Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters. The message was brief and provided no details beyond a time and location. Commander Park accompanied her, both of them in dress uniforms, both carrying the quiet tension that came before confrontations that would determine careers and lives. The conference room they were shown into was larger than expected. At the head of the table sat Vice Admiral James Keller, a man whose reputation was built on two things: absolute integrity and zero tolerance for political maneuvering. Flanking him were two captains from the Inspector General's office, a JAG officer, and Range Master Vickers. Derek Strand and Captain Bradford sat on the opposite side of the table, both looking like men facing execution. Admiral Keller stood as Maya and Park entered. His voice was formal but not unkind. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, Commander Park, thank you for coming. Please be seated. Maya took her chair with perfect military bearing. Her hands were folded on the table in front of her. Her expression revealed nothing, but inside, her heart was racing. This was the moment. Whatever happened in this room would determine whether Marcus's death would finally be given the truth it deserved. Keller opened a file folder. 4 days ago, Master Chief Strand and Captain Bradford came to my office with information regarding the death of Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chin. They claimed to have discovered irregularities in the original investigation and wished to provide testimony regarding circumstances that were not included in the official report. Maya's eyes flicked to Derek. His face was ashen. He would not meet her gaze. Keller continued. Their testimony raised significant concerns. Concerns serious enough that I ordered an immediate review of all materials related to Chin's death, including classified communications and operational records that were sealed during the original investigation. He paused, his expression hardening. What I found was deeply disturbing. The room was absolutely silent. Keller turned a page in the folder. On the date of Petty Officer Chin's death, there was a friendly fire incident involving an air asset conducting close air support. The original investigation concluded that this incident was unrelated to Chin's death, which was attributed to enemy contact during the same operation. However, communications logs tell a different story. He looked directly at Derek. Master Chief Strand, you were serving as Joint Terminal Attack Controller on that operation. You provided targeting coordinates to an F-18 Super Hornet conducting a gun run in support of your team. Is this correct? Derek's voice was barely audible. Yes, sir. And those coordinates were incorrect by approximately 50 meters, resulting in the air asset engaging the wrong position. A position where friendly forces including Petty Officer Chun and Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, were located. Is this also correct? Derek swallowed hard. Yes, sir. I made an error in coordinate transmission. Combat stress. Multiple radio channels. I transposed 2 digits. Keller's expression did not change. Petty Officer Chun recognized the error before the rounds impacted. According to recovered communications, he shouted a warning and physically moved multiple team members, including then-Lieutenant Okonkwo, out of the impact zone. He was unable to clear the area himself and was struck by 30-millimeter rounds from the aircraft's cannon. He died instantly. Maya's breathing had become shallow. Hearing the details spoken aloud, hearing the clinical description of Marcus's final moments, was harder than she had anticipated. Commander Park placed a hand on her arm onto the table, a silent offer of support. The original investigation, Keller continued, classified this incident and attributed Chen's death to enemy fire. The justification was that revealing the friendly fire incident would compromise operational security and damage morale. He closed the folder and looked at each person in the room. This was a lie. The real reason was to protect the career of Master Chief Strand and, by extension, the judgment of Captain Bradford, who had recently recommended Strand for promotion despite performance indicators that suggested he was not ready for increased responsibility. Bradford started to speak, but Keller held up a hand. I'm not finished, Captain. Additionally, Petty Officer Chun sent an encrypted message immediately before his death. For words, Derek Strand killed me. This message was received by Commander Park and submitted as evidence during the original investigation. It was deemed inadmissible and excluded from the final report. Park's voice was steady but cold. I was told the message could not be verified and therefore could not be used to contradict the established narrative of enemy contact. Keller nodded. You were lied to, Commander. The message was verified through multiple technical means. It was excluded because it was inconvenient to the desired conclusion. He turned to Maya. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, you were listed as a witness in the original investigation. According to the records, you declined to provide testimony. Is this accurate? Maya's voice was quiet. I was told that my testimony was not needed because the facts of the case were already established. I was grief-stricken and did not push back. That was my failure. That was not your failure. Keller's tone was sharp. That was a deliberate effort to prevent you from contradicting the official narrative. You were never given the opportunity to provide actual testimony. You were managed and manipulated. He stood and walked to the window overlooking the Pacific. For 18 months, a lie has been the official record. A hero's death was real, but the circumstances were falsified. A mistake that cost a life was buried, and the people responsible were protected and promoted. Derek's voice cracked. Sir, I have carried the guilt every day. I made a mistake under pressure. I did not ask for the cover-up. Bradford told me it was handled. I thought it was over. You thought you were safe. Keller turned back to face him. You were wrong. He looked at Bradford. And you, Captain, actively suppressed evidence and manipulated an investigation to protect your mentee and your own reputation. This goes beyond poor judgment. This is criminal conduct. The JAG officer spoke for the first time. Admiral, we have sufficient evidence to pursue court-martial proceedings against both Master Chief Strand and Captain Bradford. Charges would include dereliction of duty, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to conceal material facts in an official investigation. Keller was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Maya. Lieutenant Commander, this investigation was reopened because of your performance at the Advanced Precision Marksman qualification. Your exceptional scores gave you credibility that could not be dismissed or ignored. When you indicated you would be requesting a review of Chen's death, it became clear that suppression was no longer viable. He paused. Master Chief Strand and Captain Bradford attempted to preempt your request by volunteering testimony. They hoped to control the narrative and minimize their culpability. Instead, they opened the door to a full investigation that has exposed the complete truth. Maya looked at Derek for the first time since entering the room. She saw a broken man, a coward who had let fear guide him into deeper and deeper corruption. She felt no satisfaction in his destruction, only a quiet acknowledgement that Marcus's truth was finally being told. What happens now, sir? Maya's question was directed at Keller. Now, justice proceeds. Keller's voice was firm. Master Chief Strand and Captain Bradford will face court-martial. The original investigation will be officially overturned. Petty Officer Chen's death will be correctly attributed to friendly fire, and his actions saving multiple teammates will be properly documented. He will be posthumously awarded the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism. He looked at Maya with something that might have been respect. And you, Lieutenant Commander, will be given the opportunity that was stolen from you 18 months ago. The opportunity to testify about what Marcus Chen meant to naval special warfare and to you personally. Your words will be part of the permanent record. Maya nodded slowly. The weight of 18 months of silence was beginning to lift. Thank you, sir. Keller gathered his papers. This meeting is concluded. Master Chief Strand and Captain Bradford, you are restricted to base pending formal charges. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo and Commander Park, you are dismissed. As they left the conference room, Maya heard Derek's voice behind her, desperate and breaking. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I never meant for any of this. Maya did not turn around. She kept walking. Some apologies came too late to matter. The ceremony was held 6 weeks later at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The sky was clear and bright, the kind of California morning that Marcus had loved. Maya stood in her dress whites among 200 assembled sailors and officers, her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes fixed on the stage where Marcus's family sat waiting. His mother, Lin Chun, was a small woman with steel in her spine and grief etched into every line of her face. His father, Robert Chun, wore his own Navy retirement uniform, the ribbons on his chest telling the story of a career spent in service. Marcus's younger sister, Jennifer, sat between them, her hand gripping her mother's tightly. They had flown in from Virginia the day before. Maya had met with them privately, had finally told them everything she knew about Marcus's final moments, had watched them process the truth that had been hidden from them for 18 months. Lynn had looked at Maya with eyes that saw too much and asked a single question. Did he know you would become this? Did he know what you would accomplish? Maya had answered honestly. He knew before I did. He always saw more in me than I could see in myself. Now, standing in formation with the entire SEAL community watching, Maya felt the weight of that faith. Marcus had believed she would be extraordinary, had died protecting that potential. And now, in front of everyone who had doubted her, everyone who had dismissed her, everyone who had tried to break her, the Navy was acknowledging what Marcus had always known. Vice Admiral Keller took the podium. His voice carried across the assembly with absolute clarity. We are gathered today to honor the memory and sacrifice of Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun, a warrior who exemplified the finest traditions of naval special warfare, a teammate who placed the lives of others above his own, and a hero whose actions on his final day ensured that his brothers and sisters in arms would survive to continue the mission. The crowd was silent. Every eye was on the Chun family. Every mind was processing the truth that had finally been revealed. The friendly fire incident was no longer classified. The cover-up had been exposed. Derek Strand was awaiting court-martial in a holding facility. Captain Bradford had already pled guilty to obstruction of justice and been dishonorably discharged. The lies had been burned away, leaving only the hard truth of Marcus's sacrifice. On the day of his death, Keller continued. Petty Officer Chen recognized an imminent threat to his team. He shouted a warning. He physically moved multiple teammates out of danger. And when he realized he could not save himself and Lieutenant Commander Maya Okonkwo, he made the choice that defines heroism. He chose her life over his own. Tears were streaming down Lin Chen's face. Her husband had his arm around her shoulders, holding her together through force of will. Jennifer was crying silently, her young face showing the devastation of losing a brother and hero. Keller's voice took on greater weight. Because of Petty Officer Chen's actions, 4 naval special warfare operators survived that day who would otherwise have perished. One of those operators is with us today. Lieutenant Commander Maya Okonkwo, front and center. Maya marched forward with precise steps. She faced Keller and rendered a salute. He returned it with equal precision, then turned to address the crowd. Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo recently achieved the highest qualification score in the history of the Advanced Precision Marksman course. A score of 96% across 27 scenarios, including shots that previous experts deemed impossible. When asked about this achievement, she dedicated her performance to the memory of Petty Officer Chun. Keller looked at Maya directly. Lieutenant Commander, Petty Officer Chun saw and used something that took the rest of us longer to recognize. He saw a warrior of exceptional capability. He saw someone worthy of the ultimate sacrifice. And he saw the future of naval special warfare. Today, we acknowledge that his faith was justified. He gestured for her to face the Chun family. Maya turned and looked into Lin's eyes. The older woman stood, walked to the edge of the stage, and descended the steps with her husband's help. She approached Maya slowly, carrying a small box. When she was close enough, Lin spoke. Her voice was soft but steady, meant only for Maya's ears. Marcus wrote me a letter before every deployment. In his final letter, he mentioned you. He said he had met someone special, someone who would change what people believed was possible, someone who would make the SEALs better just by being part of them. She opened the box to reveal a medal. This is his trident, the one he earned when he became a SEAL. I wanted to have it, because you are his legacy. You are what he died protecting. Maya's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she accepted the box with trembling hands. I will honor this every day of my life, Mrs. Chun. I promise you that. Lin reached up and touched Maya's face gently. He loved you, you know, not romantically, but the way warriors love those they would die for. You were his sister in every way that mattered. And I am grateful beyond words that he saved you, that you are here, that you are becoming everything he knew you would be. They embraced. Two women bound by grief and gratitude. The crowd watched in respectful silence as they held each other, sharing a moment that transcended military formality. When they separated, Keller resumed the ceremony. By direction of the Secretary of the Navy, and in recognition of extraordinary heroism in the face of imminent danger, Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun is posthumously awarded the Navy Cross. The medal was presented to Lin Chun, who accepted it with dignity that came from a lifetime of military family strength. She held it against her chest, her other hand still gripping Maya's, creating a physical connection between past sacrifice and future promise. The formation was dismissed. Officers and enlisted personnel approached the Chun family to offer condolences and respect. Maya stood nearby, still holding the box containing Marcus's trident, still processing the weight of what had just been placed in her hands. Commander Park appeared at her side. He would be proud of you, not just for the shooting, for everything, for staying silent when speech would have been easier, for fighting when quitting would have been understandable, for becoming the warrior he always knew you were. Maya nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. She looked at the box in her hands. Marcus's trident, the symbol of everything he had achieved, everything he had been, and now it was hers to carry forward. Range Master Vickers approached, his expression softer than she had ever seen it. Lieutenant Commander, I received notification this morning. You have been selected for assignment to SEAL Team 3 as their primary precision marksman. Additionally, you have been chosen to develop and teach the new advanced sniper curriculum for all of naval special warfare. Your methods, your approach, your understanding of the discipline will now be taught to every SEAL sniper who follows you. It was everything Marcus had predicted, everything he had said she would achieve. And it was happening because he had believed when no one else did, because he had saved her when the cost was his own life, because he had seen her truth before she could see it herself. That evening, Maya sat alone on the beach near the base. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. She held Marcus's trident in her hands, feeling the weight of it, the history of it, the responsibility of it. She spoke to him as if he could hear. I made the shot, Marcus, the impossible one, the one you always said I could make. And I'm going to teach others to make it too. I'm going to make sure your legacy is not just your sacrifice, but your vision. A naval special warfare that values skill over politics, merit over prejudice, truth over comfort. The waves crashed against the shore. The wind carried the salt smell she had come to associate with this place, with this life, with this calling. She fastened Marcus's trident to her uniform, right above her own. 2 tridents, one earned, one inherited through sacrifice and faith. She stood and turned back toward the base. Tomorrow she would report to SEAL Team 3. Tomorrow she would begin teaching the next generation. Tomorrow she would start living the future Marcus had died to protect. But tonight, she simply honored his memory by being exactly who he had always known she was. A warrior without equal, a sniper beyond compare, and a legacy that would outlast them both. 6 months passed like water flowing downstream. Inevitable, purposeful, transformative. Maya settled into her dual role with SEAL Team 3 and the Advanced Sniper Training Program with the same focused intensity she brought to everything. But now, that intensity was channeled not into proving herself, but into building something that would outlast her. The first class of students in her new curriculum, number 12. 11 men and 1 woman. They stood at attention in the briefing room at 0600 on a Monday morning in January, each of them wondering what they had signed up for. Maya stood at the front of the room, wearing her dress uniform, both tridents clearly visible above her ribbons. Marcus's trident had become part of her identity, a reminder of the standard she carried forward. Good morning. Her voice was calm and clear. The silence she had maintained for 18 months was gone, replaced by the confident communication of someone who had earned the right to speak. You are here because you want to be the best, because you believe you have what it takes to operate at the highest level of precision marksmanship in the world. Some of you will be right. Some of you will discover you were wrong. All of you will be changed by what happens in the next 12 weeks. She clicked to the first slide. A photograph of Marcus Chun in full gear, his rifle slung across his chest, his smile wide and genuine. This is Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun. He was the finest sniper I ever worked with. He taught me everything I know about this discipline. And the first lesson he taught me was this: being a sniper is not about the shot. It is about the person willing to take the shot. The students watched her with varying degrees of skepticism and respect. The woman in the back row, Petty Officer Second Class Sarah Gutierrez, was leaning forward slightly, absorbing every word. The others were still measuring Maya, still wondering if the stories they had heard were true. Maya continued, "You all know my qualification scores. 96% across 27 scenarios. You know about the 4,000-meter shots. You know about the impossible final scenario." She paused. "What you do not know is that I failed my first attempt at sniper school. I was told I did not have the temperament. I was told I was too emotional. I was told to consider a different specialty. This got their attention. Failure was not what they expected to hear from someone with a record." Marcus Chun disagreed with that assessment. He saw something the instructors missed. He saw someone willing to suffer through anything to achieve excellence. Someone who would turn rejection into fuel instead of excuse. Someone who understood that the mind defeats more enemies than the rifle ever will. She looked at each student. He was right. And over the next 12 weeks, I'm going to show you what he showed me. How to become not just a good sniper, but an exceptional one. The training was brutal. Maya had incorporated everything that had tested her during the qualification course. Equipment failures, sleep deprivation, impossible scenario. But she had also incorporated something else. The techniques Marcus had taught her. The patience, the adaptability, the understanding that every shot was a conversation between the shooter and the universe, and the best snipers learned to listen before they spoke. By week 4, 3 students had dropped out. The woman, Gutierrez, was still there, consistently scoring in the top 3. By week 8, 2 more had failed to meet standards. The remaining 7 were forged into something harder than when they started. They moved differently, thought differently, shot differently. Commander Park visited during week 10. She stood at the back of the range, watching Maya work with Gutierrez on a particularly challenging scenario. 1,400 meters. Moving target. Variable wind. Gutierrez missed her first shot, adjusted, and hit the second. Maya's feedback was precise and encouraging. You are compensating for the wind, but not for the target's acceleration pattern. Watch the movement for 3 cycles before you engage. Find the rhythm. Gutierrez nodded, reset, and tried again. This time she hit on the first shot. Maya smiled. That is it. You're learning to see what is invisible. Park waited until the training session ended before approaching. You're good at this. Teaching. Marcus would approve. Maya packed up her equipment. I think about him every time I teach. Wonder if I'm doing it the way he would have done it. If I am honoring his methods or just imitating them. Park shook her head. You're doing better than imitating. You are evolving them. Marcus was exceptional, but you have taken his foundation and built something new on top of it. This curriculum you designed is going to change naval special warfare sniper training for the next generation. They walked back to the operations building together. Maya had made peace with her role here. She was no longer just a sniper. She was a teacher, a mentor, a guardian of standards that Marcus had died protecting. And she was good at it, better than she had expected to be. That evening, she received a message that Derek Strand's court-martial had concluded. Guilty on all charges. Dishonorable discharge. Reduction to the lowest enlisted rank. Forfeiture of all pay and allowances. 5 years in military prison. The sentence was severe but appropriate. Derek had not just made a mistake. He had compounded it with lies and cover-up and attempted destruction of an innocent person's career. Maya felt no triumph at the news, only a quiet acknowledgement that justice had been served. Derek's life was destroyed, but that destruction was his own doing. She had simply refused to let him destroy hers in the process. Captain Bradford had received 3 years. His rank and pension were gone. His legacy in naval special warfare was reduced to a cautionary tale about what happened when politics corrupted merit. The message was clear throughout the community. The old ways, the protective walls around incompetence, the unspoken agreements to bury inconvenient truths, those days were ending. Maya was part of that ending, part of the new beginning. She represented a standard that could not be ignored or dismissed. Her scores were documented. Her teaching was transforming students. Her presence was changing what people believed was possible. On the final day of the 12-week course, 7 students stood at attention waiting for their results. Maya reviewed each performance individually, providing detailed feedback, highlighting strengths, and identifying areas for continued development. When she reached Gutierrez, she paused. Petty Officer Gutierrez, you entered this course as a competent marksman. You are leaving it as an exceptional sniper. Your final score across all scenarios is 91%. The second highest score in the history of this curriculum. Gutierrez's eyes widened. Second highest, ma'am? Maya allowed herself a small smile. I still hold the record, but you're close enough that I expect you to break it eventually. You have the discipline. You have the skill. And most importantly, you have the mindset. You understand that being a sniper is not about proving you are the best. It is about being your best when it matters most. After the graduation ceremony, Gutierrez approached Maya privately. Ma'am, I need to thank you. When I volunteered for this course, I was told by multiple people that I was wasting my time. That women do not have what it takes for this level of precision work. That I should focus on support roles. Your example gave me the courage to ignore them. Maya looked at this young woman who reminded her so much of herself 2 years ago. Uncertain but determined. Doubted but capable. She thought about Marcus and what he would say. You do not need my example, petty officer. You need your own performance. Let your scores speak. Let your skills demonstrate. And never apologize for being exceptional. Gutierrez nodded. Yes, ma'am. She hesitated, then asked, did Petty Officer Chen really predict you would break all the records? Maya thought about that question. About Marcus's absolute faith. About his willingness to die, protecting her potential. He did not predict it. He knew it. There is a difference. Prediction is a guess. Knowledge is certainty. Marcus had certainty about things the rest of us could only hope for. That was his gift. That evening, Maya visited Marcus's grave for the first time since the ceremony. She had avoided it, unsure what to say, unsure if she was ready. Now she knelt beside the headstone and placed her hand on the cold marble. His name, his rank, his dates, and the new inscription, Navy Cross recipient. Hero, teacher, friend. I graduated my first class today, Marcus. 7 students. 1 woman who reminds me of myself. I think you would like her. I think you would see in her what you saw in me. She paused, her voice catching slightly. I'm teaching them your methods, your patience, your understanding that the shot is just the final expression of everything that came before it. I am making sure your legacy is not just your sacrifice, but your wisdom. The sun was setting. The cemetery was quiet. Maya stood and rendered a salute to Marcus's grave. A final gesture of respect from warrior to warrior. Then she turned and walked back to her car, back to her life, back to the future Marcus had died to protect. She was no longer the silent woman drowning in grief. She was the teacher, the mentor, the standard-bearer, and every day she made sure Marcus's vision of naval special warfare lived through her work. 1 year after the ceremony, 1 year after Marcus received the Navy Cross, 1 year after Maya's life transformed from survival to purpose, she stood on the same range where she had made the 4,000-meter shots that started everything. But today was different. Today she was not here to prove anything. She was here to witness. The long-range precision challenge had returned. The same competition that had brought together the finest snipers from every branch and allied nation. The same impossible test that 13 experts had failed before Maya stepped forward. But this year there were changes. 4 women stood among the competitors. One of them was Petty Officer First Class Sarah Gutierrez, who had graduated Maya's course at the top of her class and gone on to break 3 range records in her first operational deployment. Range Master Vickers stood beside Maya in the observation area. He gestured toward the competitors warming up on the preliminary ranges. Look at what you started. For women competing at the highest level. Not because anyone lowered standards, because you raised them so high that capability became the only metric that mattered. Maya watched Gutierrez settle into a shooting position with the same economical grace Maya had taught her. The student had learned well. More than that, she had taken the lessons and made them her own, developing techniques that even Maya had not considered. That was the mark of true teaching. When the student eventually surpassed the teacher, Commander Park joined them, a folder tucked under her arm. I have news. The Secretary of the Navy approved your promotion to Commander. The ceremony is scheduled for next month. At 35, you will be one of the youngest commanders in naval special warfare history. Maya accepted this information with the same calm she brought to everything now. The silence that had once been grief had evolved into confidence. She spoke when words added value. She listened when silence served better. She had found the balance Marcus had always embodied. There is more. Park opened the folder. The new Naval Special Warfare Doctrine Manual credits you, by name, in 3 sections. Your methods are now official policy. Your understanding of advanced marksmanship is now the standard by which all others are measured. She paused. Marcus will be proud, not just of what you achieved, but of what you were building. The competition began. Maya watched as shooter after shooter attempted the 4,000-meter challenge. Some came close. Most failed. The conditions are difficult, but not impossible. Exactly as they should be. Testing the limits without demanding the superhuman. When Gutierrez's turn came, Maya felt a flutter of something like nervousness. Not for herself, for her student, for the young woman who carried forward the legacy that Marcus had started and Maya had continued. Gutierrez settled into position with absolute focus. Her breathing was controlled. Her movements were precise. She had learned patience from Maya, who had learned it from Marcus. 3 generations of excellence compressed into a single moment. The shot cracked across the range. For 1,000 meters away, the target shattered. The crowd erupted in applause. Gutierrez had made it. Not on her third attempt like Maya. On her first. Clean. Perfect. Undeniable. She stood and looked back toward the observation area, found Maya's eyes, and nodded once. Student to teacher. Acknowledgement and gratitude compressed into a single gesture. Vickers was grinning. She's going to break your qualification record, you know? Maybe as soon as next month. Maya smiled. Good. That is exactly what should happen. Records exist to be broken. Standards exist to be raised. If my students are not surpassing me, then I am failing as a teacher. The day continued with other shooters attempting the challenge. By the end, 3 had succeeded. All 3 were graduates of Maya's program. The message was unmistakable. Excellence was being systematically taught and replicated. What had once seemed like individual genius was now revealed as learnable skill combined with proper mindset. That evening, there was a reception for all competitors and evaluators. Maya stood near the back, watching the social dynamics, observing how the culture was shifting. Women were no longer novelties to be questioned. They were competitors to be respected. The change was not complete. There were still skeptics, still those who clung to old prejudices. But the momentum had shifted. Merit was winning. Lin Chen appeared at Maya's elbow. Marcus's mother had become a regular presence at naval special warfare events, representing her son's legacy, ensuring his sacrifice was remembered. She and Maya had developed a relationship built on shared grief and mutual respect. Lin looked across the room at the young snipers celebrating their performances. He would love this, seeing what his faith in you created, seeing how many lives you're changing. Maya followed her gaze. I think about him every day, wonder if I'm honoring his memory correctly, if he would approve of the choices I am making. Lin touched her arm gently. He gave you his trident. That was not just a gift. That was a commission. He was telling you to carry forward his vision of what naval special warfare could be. And that is exactly what you're doing. She smiled. You are not honoring his memory. You are fulfilling his purpose. Commander Park joined them with 3 glasses of champagne. A toast to Marcus Chun, who saw the future before the rest of us. To Maya Okonkwo, who built that future with her own hands. And to every warrior who will benefit from the standards you both established. They raised their glasses. Maya thought about the journey from that terrible day 18 months ago. The grief, the silence, the determination, the qualification course designed to break her, the revelation of truth, the justice served, the teaching begun, the legacy continued, all of it leading to this moment. Standing in a room full of snipers who were better because she had been willing to transform pain into purpose. Later, alone in her quarters, Maya sat at her desk with a pen and paper. She had taken to writing letters to Marcus, not sending them anywhere, just writing them as a way to process thoughts, to maintain connection, to remember what mattered. Tonight's letter was different from the others. Dear Marcus, today I watched Sarah make the 4,000-meter shot on her first attempt. You would have loved it. She used the breathing technique you taught me, the one I taught her. 3 generations of your wisdom compressed into a single perfect shot. They are promoting me to commander. They are crediting me in official doctrine. They are treating me like I did something extraordinary. But we both know the truth. You did the extraordinary thing. You saw potential when others saw limitation. You believed when belief was unreasonable. You saved my life when it cost you yours. I carry your trident every day, not as decoration, as commission. As a reminder that I owe you a debt that can only be repaid by becoming everything you knew I could be. By teaching others to reach heights they did not know existed. By changing the culture one student at a time. The silence I maintained for 18 months was my way of honoring your sacrifice. But I have learned that the best honor is not silence. It is speaking your truth loudly enough that others hear it and are changed by it. So I speak now. I teach now. I lead now, and I do it all in your name. You were right about me, Marcus. I did not see it at first. It took me 18 months of grief and a qualification course designed to destroy me to finally understand. But now I know. I'm exactly who you said I was. And I'm going to spend the rest of my career making sure others become who they are meant to be too. Rest easy, my friend. Your legacy is secure. Your vision is alive. Your faith was justified. Until we meet again, Maya, she folded the letter and placed it in the box where she kept all the others. Dozens of them now. A record of transformation. A chronicle of healing. A testament to the power of belief. She fastened both tridents to her uniform for tomorrow. Her own, earned through struggle and determination. Marcus's, inherited through sacrifice and faith. Together, they represented everything she had become and everything she still aspired to be. The next morning, she returned to the range. Not for competition, not for qualification, simply to teach. 3 new students waited for her, eager and uncertain, full of potential they could not yet see in themselves. She looked at them and saw what Marcus had seen in her. Warriors waiting to be forged, standards waiting to be raised, futures waiting to be built. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had walked through fire and emerged stronger. "You are here because you want to be the best. Some of you will be right. Some of you will discover you were wrong. All of you will be changed." She paused. "My name is Commander Maya Okonkwo, and I am going to show you what is possible when you refuse to accept limitations." The sun rose higher. The range came alive with the sounds of training. And Maya did what Marcus had taught her to do. She transformed doubt into certainty. She converted potential into performance. She built the future one student at a time. If you enjoyed this story, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, character, or moment that resonated with you. Share if you have witnessed similar courage or hidden strength in someone who was underestimated. The legacy continued. The promise was kept. And somewhere, Marcus Chun was smiling.